Hi everybody, this is Brett Moody, one of the two co-creators of Yargh, an odd dice odyssey. Today I'm going to play through one turn of Yargh to give you an idea of our basic setup and core mechanics. What's the goal of Yargh? So at the end of Yargh there's a battle with the Terror of the Sea, which is a big boss fight. Anyone who survives that battle wins, but the person with the highest score of the survivors is the ultimate winner. We're not going to get to that battle today, but I just wanted to give you a context for which all the rest of this action is happening. So, let's get into some basic setup, and along the way, I'll show you some of our mechanics. So the first thing that we do, and in this case, we're going to be playing with two players. I'll be playing for both of them. The first thing that we do is we take our starter cards, we shuffle them, which you can do with R in Tabletop Simulator, and then you divide them by the number of players in the game. So we're going to split into two decks. I'm going to take one and place it on my action card draw pile. I'll take the other and place it here. It doesn't really matter if these decks are a little uneven. Okay, so the second thing I'm going to do is for each player, I'm going to take out 3 dice and place them in front of me. So now I'm the second player. Take out 3 dice from the Chaos bag, which is this black bag. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick one of these 3 dice and we're going to put the other 2 back. So these are the Chaos dice. And what's cool about these is they all have different values on them. So this one you can see has 1, 2 20s, and 3 skulls. This one has a 4, a 16, an 8, another 8, and a 17. And this one has a 15, a 5, this flower, which I'll explain in a second, a 10, and a skull. So just very quickly, skulls are always bad. They basically mean that if you roll them and you get a skull, you can't use that dice. Okay? Next up, numbers. Sometimes when a number is low, that can be beneficial during low tide, which we'll explain in a second. And during high tide, higher numbers are better. So looking at these 3 dice, this is probably the most versatile one because it has a range of numbers. So I'm going to keep that one, put it in my Chaos dice slot, and return the other 2. Now let's do that for the other player. So he's got a unique die in that it has a 30 on it, which is very high, right? But it also has 2 skulls. So he also has got a 2, a 3, 11, 7, a flower, and this one is a 2, a 2, a 2, and a 17. So there's a couple of different strategies here, and as you play more of Yargh, you're getting an idea of which dice are generally better or worse. But in general, most dice are roughly around the same. It just depends on the context. And choosing the right dice for the context is where things get really there's a lot of skill involved. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this dice. Actually, I'll pick this dice. Right? And then put the other 2 back. Beyond that, I have my health counter set to 3. My glory counter is set to 0. I've got 3 charms here. I've got my starter cards, which I've shuffled. Right? So that's all I need to do in terms of my personal setup for both players. And then on the main board, I've got my tide coin, which is low or high, right? I've got my ship counter, which is on the first island. I've got my fate die, which I'll explain in a second. It doesn't need to be at any particular value. I've got my monster cards shuffled, and I've got my island shuffled. All right. So let's quickly explain what the fate die does. So if I have a dice that has a flower on it, which this one does not have, which is, can happen. I don't think this one has one either. But let's grab one that does. Alright, so this one, this fate die will get rolled throughout the game, as we'll see. And if my dice shows a flower, or in the physical version of the game, a star, then this dice will take the value of that dice. So I've got these two dice next to each other. This one's worth 30. This one is worth 5. If this gets re-rolled to, say, a 1, now this is worth 1. This is still worth 30. So that's the fate die in a nutshell. Okay, so what do these charms do? Let's get those dice back. A charm lets you re-roll any dice at any time. So if I roll these two dice, and for whatever reason I'm not happy with this 30, maybe because it's low tide, then I can spend a charm by putting it in this bowl and re-roll it once. In this case, I got the same roll, right? So it only did me so much value, but that gives you a quick idea what the charms do. If you don't use a charm by the end of the game, it's worth 5 points. So there's an incentive not to just blow through them. Okay, so now we're pretty much set up. And the best way to play Yargh, I think, is just to follow this game overview page, which you'll see on the second page of the PDF. And there's going to be mechanics that we haven't covered yet. I'll explain those as we go along. So we have the phases sea change, navigation, combat, loot, island, cleanup. That's it. The game is just those 6 phases. There's mechanics we haven't seen yet, but the game is really as simple as that. Alright, so the first phase is the sea change. We flip the tide coin and we roll the fate die. So we've already explained what the fate die does. Let's go ahead and roll that. And it doesn't really matter who rolls it, so I'm just going to roll it for both players. Alright, it's a 1. That's fine. And then we have the tide coin. So the tide coin determines whether it's high tide or low tide. So let's flip it. And it's low tide. So what does that mean? That means that if the pirates have any disagreement, they'll go into a duel, right? When a duel happens, and there will be cases where we have duels that you'll see, when a duel happens during low tide, so both pirates roll their dice, and during low tide, the pirate with the lower die wins, so that would be this case, and during high tide, the pirate with the higher die wins, right? Again, I don't have a flower on either of these dice, but let's say I have this, right? If it's low tide, this flower is going to win because it is worth 1. This is worth 8, this is worth 13. And if I want to re-roll one of these dice, I can take a charm, re-roll it. Again, it's 10, so I'm still losing in this scenario, but you get the general idea. I can also, and this would probably be smarter in this case, I can also re-roll any of the dice with the charm. I can re-roll this, right? I can re-roll the, and I can re-roll the fate die as well, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And we'll re-roll this just for effect because I don't remember what it was. High tide. Okay, cool. All right. So let's put this back and let's put the other 2 dice here. All right. So we've gone through the sea change step. We got high tide and our fate die was at 1. So let's return it to that. Now the next step is the navigation phase. We take 2 monster cards. First, let's quickly shuffle these. Okay. We take 2 monster cards. We flip them over, and we place them in the monster card face-up slot. Right. So we got the Bayou Bureaucrat, And let's grab another one. Flip it. This is the electric eel storm. And I'll explain these in a little bit. And then the third slot, which is the fog, we take another monster card and we lay it face down. All right. So now the islands that we're about to draw are going to be tied to each monster. So we'll grab this island, not so even keeled. We'll look at that more closely in a bit. But that's tied with the Bayou Bureaucrat, and they're both in the Sea of Scoundrels. So if we go for the monster, we also have to do this island and vice versa. Okay. Next up, we have Odd Man Out, another not great island. That's the Electric Eel Storm. Oops. Sorry, didn't mean to look at that. This goes here. Because anything that's in the fog, that goes in the middle of our, that goes face down in the fog. So, what we do now is we decide as a team which of these pairs of islands and monsters we're going to visit. So let's take a look at each of these. So the Bayou Bureaucrat, that's a level 2 monster. So that's like midway. There's 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. 2 is right in the middle, so it's going to give a moderate challenge, but it is also going to give us some pretty decent rewards. It's got 25p, so p is the number of pirates. We're playing with 2, and that means 2 times 25, that's 50. So it's going to have 50 health. Its attack value is d20, so it's going to roll a d20 to attack us, and it's going to attack everybody. All right, with as all. And its special effect is pirates draw one less action card this combat. So action cards will show in a bit. The island that's attached to is not so even keeled. Every pirate rolls all their dice. If a dice has an even face, that pirate loses that die. So not a good island to go to. The next one is Electrical Eel Storm. Again, 50p because there's 2 pirates times 25. Attacks with the d20 again, but this uses the targeting die instead, which depending on which monster we visit, will show or not show. So during the activation phase, all pirates receive 20 damage for each die that they own that is equal to the monster's attack die. Every pirate rolls all their dice. If a die has an odd face, that pirate loses that die. So again, it's not very good. And then finally, we have this one, which is face down. And we don't know what it is. We can pick it, but if we pick it, then we're committing to it. All right. So let's say me and the other player, the pink player, we have different opinions on which one we want to go to, right? Let's say they want to go to the fog. I want to go to the electrical eel storm. So what we would do is we would duel. So it's high tide. So we both get our dice, pull it over here, right? And this is how we determine any argument in the game or any disagreement, is we duel. So we take our dice, we roll them, and in this case, I'm going to win the argument or win the duel because I have 30 and this person has 8, right? So, and it's high tide, so the higher number wins. So let's say this person really wants to go and do the fog. They can take their charm, put it in here, and then re-roll my die. 10. Okay, so I'm still winning in that case. So I would go, I would get my way, right? Of course, this person can use more of their charms, but let's say that they decide not to. So we take this island that we're not using, and we take this monster that we're not using, and we place it face down. So we wouldn't normally do this, but just for the sake of seeing more of the game, I'm going to look at what's in the fog. Okay. So you can see here, that would have been a level 3 monster, which is particularly difficult. and it's a pretty chaotic island card called Gallows Humor. So, pretty. There's an element of randomness when you play this game. So, without further ado, what we're gonna do is we return our chaos dice, and we're gonna enter combat. So this monster, he's going to attack with the D20, and he's going to attack with the targeting die, which we'll explain in a second. And he's got 50 health. So you can just put in like that. And the way that we're going to start combat is we take our deck and we start laying out our cards. So the starter cards, these are like our more traditional cards that are a little weaker than our power action cards. But what they do is we combine them with our dice to create actions, which can mean either doing damage to the monster, yourself, or other pirates. It can deal with gaining artifacts, gaining health, gaining a charm potentially. There's lots of different things an action card can do. But for now, let's just deal out our 4 action cards. And I'm going to explain how these work in a second. So, combat is pretty simple. So just if you're following along in the game overview, we've done the sea change, we've done the navigation, now we're doing combat. So we have a separate diagram for combat, which we'll show in a second. Here. There's a lot of text here, but basically we set up, we roll our dice and draw our cards, and then we activate our cards. That's basically it. So to start, what we do is everyone, after they've drawn their cards, everyone rolls their dice. So I'm going to roll for the monster. Okay, C, D, and 8. Then I'm going to roll for both players. 13, okay. This pink player, they got 8 as well. Okay. Just for the sake of this tutorial, no, we'll keep it there. Okay. So, how do action cards work? Each action card has an activation cost, which you can see here. So, this one says odd. That means any dice that's odd, like this one, can be placed on that die and to activate it. And then below the line is the effect that action card will have. So this says do 5 damage for each action card you are not using this turn. That would be, I only have 1 die, so I can only use 1 card. So the other 3 I'm not going to use. So that is 3 cards I'm not using, so that's 15. So that's pretty good. So I could do this, right? This one says odd max 11. I couldn't use my 13 there. This one says max 8. Can't use that. This one says minimum 3, so I could use that, but that's less damage than the other one. All right, so let's look at what the other player has. This says max 16, so they could put that there, and it says if the die is even, do half its value in damage, so 4 damage. That's not so good. If the value is odd, do double its damage, double its value in damage. That's not so good either. All right, this one says gain. This one's odd, so you can't use it. Kind of a nothing worth saying there. This says min 5, max 10. So this could match there because that's in between those numbers. And this says min 12, do 5 damage. Okay, so we probably, this player wants to do this, right? To do 8 damage. So here's the thing though, is let's look at what the monster has as their special ability. First off, they're doing 8 damage, which is, not terrible, not great either. And they're doing damage to C and D. So the good news is that just by random, this player, the white player, is player board A, so Alice. They're not here, right? You can see there's boards D, C, B, and A. Again, doesn't really matter besides the targeting die, but this is player A, so we're not going to be hit by that roll. This player is player B, so they're also not going to get hit by that roll. So with that in mind, we're not going to be hit by this dice. It's going to hit the two players that are not playing with us, so it's effectively a miss on the part of the monster. Here's the problem, though, is that this guy's special effect says during the activation phase, all pirates receive 20 damage for each die they own that's equal to the monster's attack die. And in this case, this pirate, Pirate B, and the monster are sharing the same number. So this guy, player B, they have a pretty good setup here, right? This is a good dice for them to use. So what they're probably going to do is they're going to use one of their charms, and they're going to re-roll not the targeting die, but they're going to re-roll the monster die. So they're going to move the targeting die over, because again, a charm can re-roll any single die. So you're going to re-roll this, and it's a 16, which is more, but now the dice are not matching. The monster die and the pink player's die are not matching, so this effect doesn't come into play. And because the monster is missing, regardless with the targeting die, then no one's getting this 16 damage. So if the monster, because it's high tide, the monster is going to attack first. So he's going to do 16 damage, but again, it misses. And now the other two players are going to take their actions. So I'm going to do 13. So 13's here, which activates this card. That does 15 damage, right? Because there's 3 action cards I'm not using with 5 damage each. 1, 2, 3. So we do 15 damage. We get to 35. And then we look at our other player. They're doing 8 damage. Which gets us down to 27. So what is this hook for? You're about to see. So because the white player did the most damage, they can pick up this hook and say, Yargh! And when they say Yargh, they get 1 glory point. When they get 3 glory points, they're going to get a free charm from the House of Charms over here. So I did the most damage with 15. This player did the second most with 8. Or with 8. So I get to say Yargh, and I get a glory point. Alright, so that's 1 turn. You return our chaos dice to their holders. And then we take all of our cards, whether we use them or not, and we put them in the discard pile. And we draw a new set. And then we do the whole thing over again. Okay. So now everyone's going to roll their dice. I'll roll for the white glove player first. Dead. Okay, that's not good. I'm going to roll for the monster next. 13 A and C. Okay. Then I'm going to roll for this player. 8. Okay, so same as last time. So, the skull is not good. When we get the skull, we cannot use it with any action card, no matter what it says. Okay, so that's not good. 13 A and C. There's no player C, but there is a player A, which is our white glove player. So right now, they're set to take 13 damage, which is not great. This player rolled an 8. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if I'm this player, I'm going to take my charm, and I'm going to try and re-roll my dice, so I can get something useful. 13. Okay, great. So that only leaves me with one option because this is even, this is even, this is max 10. This is minimum 10. So I'm going to put this here, steal 5 health from the monster. It's pretty solid. And then I'm going to switch to the other player. This is even. This is min 0, max 2. Can't use that. This is max 10, and this is max 8. So we have a couple of options here. This is do damage equal to half the value of this die. So that's 4. That's not so good. Can't use this one. This one says if the die value is odd, heal this amount. If the die value is even, do that much damage. That's pretty good. This one says do damage equal to the value of the die. These are basically equivalent. They're both going to do 8 damage. So we're going to put that there. Okay. And we'll put that here. There is the concept of trading dice. We haven't had the need to do that yet, but we'll show that if that comes up. Okay, so it's high tide. So our monster is going to attack first. He's going to do 13 damage to player A, which gets us down to 17. And he doesn't attack player B. So now player A goes. They steal 5 health from the monster, which gets them to 22. Knocks this guy down to 22 as well. This player is going to do 8 damage. Gets them down to 14. And because this player did more damage, they're going to Yargh and gain 1 glory point. Okay. So now what we're going to do is... and this did not come... Oh, no, sorry. This did come into effect. So this says, during the activation phase, all pirates receive 20 damage. Okay, so... what we're going to do, actually, we're going to redo this turn, because I didn't see that. This player, they re-rolled they re-rolled their dice, but now they're going to re-roll the monster die, too. And it's 12. Okay, so basically the same thing. And we'll keep the turn. We'll just say the rest of the turn happened as expected, but we avoided the 20 damage that was going to happen. Okay, so, and this guy is still down by the same amount. All right, so that's our second turn of combat. So we reset again. And now we're going to go to the next turn. Okay. So I get a new set of cards. And when you're playing with less people, like 1 or 2 people, you get more starter cards to begin with. Okay. Now we're going to switch over to the other person. Draw 4 cards. Right now, the pink player is doing a little bit better just because they have more health. They also have less charms, if I remember correctly. Alright, so we're going to reroll our dice. 10, okay. The monster got A and B for 16, so that's pretty strong, actually. And now this player got 16. Ooh, not lucky. Okay. So again, and this is pretty unusual, we're matching up here. So what we'll do is this player is going to use their last charm to re-roll this, because it's A and B, so both these players are going to get attacked. 8. Okay, so they can live with that. So they've avoided the effect of this. This player has 10, so it says do triple the value of the damage of the die do triple the value of the die in damage to the monster. Do the value of the die in do the value of the die in damage to yourself. So that's 30. So that's really strong. And now we're going to go over here. This player's rolled a 16. But here's the thing. They can't use that 16, actually. And they can't reroll because they don't have any charms left. Because this is min 6 to max 8. This is max 10. This is max 12. And this is 5, 10, or 15. So right now, they cannot use any of their dice. So what they'll do is they can trade dice now. And dice are all traded permanently. So what they're going to do is they're going to trade their dice to each other. And now this person, they can use 16 because they have this min 3. So they'll put that there. And the other player can do this one, which is do 10 damage. So between them, they get exactly 14 damage, which is exactly how much they need. And these trades, like I said, are permanent. But first off, we have to finish the monster's attack. So he's done 8 damage to A and B. So 8 damage here, and then 8 damage here. This player's done more damage, so they do this, and they get a glory point. And let's just say, for the sake of the game, they had got another glory point, then it would go to 3, and it would reset, and they get a charm. So let's just say that they did that for the sake of example. Okay. And now we take off this guy's health completely because the 2 players did 14 damage total. All right. So at the end of the combat, we put our dice back, and then we place them back in the discard pile, like so. Okay. We put the monster dice back. We put the monster into Davy Jones' locker. And now you'll see we are on step 5, Island. So I've got 15 health and 1 glory point, or the white player does. And then the pink player has 22 health and 0 glory points, but 1 charm. Okay. So now let's look at the island. This island's not a good island, right? There are islands that are good, there are islands that are bad. This is one that's not so good. So it says every pirate rolls a die, all their dice. Oh, sorry. We skipped a phase. We got to go to loot. So the first thing we do, because this is a level 2 monster, is, and you can see this on the loot page. First off is we draw power cards equal to the number of pirates in the crew. And we flip them over. So 2. So power cards are silver. They have these P's at the top, and they tend to have higher activation costs, but they're a lot stronger. So you can see this one says steal a charm from another pirate, max 5, and odd. This one takes 3 dice of any value, and it says take an artifact of your choosing from the artifact discard pile. So you might be wondering, well, we only have 1 dice so far. Well, as the game goes on, you're going to get more dice by killing level 3 monsters and from some islands and some artifacts. So at this point, though, there's only 1 dice that each person has. So this is probably the more useful dice because they're going to get 2 dice before they get 3 dice. So let's say both players want this dice. Or both players want this power card. They're going to duel. It's high tide, right? We roll. Purple, which is now this player, they have a 14, so they get what they want. They get this card, and they place it on top of their starter deck. The pink player They didn't get what they want, so they take this card and put it on top of their starter deck. Right. Okay, so that happens, and then because it's level 2, we also get an artifact. So artifacts are cool. They fall into 2 categories, which are conveniently shown here. They can either be points, right? So this is an emerald that counts as 20 points towards your final score, or they can be a item, which is purple. So points, like I said, count towards your final score at the end of the game. They don't do anything besides that. And artifacts can be used at different times. And you can see how many times you can use them at the bottom. This item card is permanent, so you can use it as many times as you want. So this one says the fate die is always a 7 for you if you choose. This does not change the fate values die for other pirates. So let's say the white player wants this one and the pink player wants this one. There's no need to duel, so they just divide it evenly like that and put it to the side of their board. Okay, so that's the looting phase. And the tougher the monster you fight, the better loot that you get. So now we're back to the island phase. Number 5. So odd man out. Every pirate rolls all their dice. If a die has an odd face, that pirate loses that die. So in this case, it says pirates cannot lose all their die. There's only one die that each of us have. So there's not really any risk here. We both got 30 anyway, or we both got even numbers anyway. So our dice are safe. But if we had more dice, we could potentially lose a dice in that situation. So that's our island. There are other cards that have... let's actually do this island because it's a little bit more applicable. Islands can be good, they can be bad, they can be neutral. They're a wide variety. There are chance cards, essentially. So because that last island didn't really have an effect, let's use this island instead. So, Charmed Waters. Each pirate rolls one of their dice. If it's higher than the current value of the fate die, they gain 2 charms. The current value is 1, so the odds are pretty good that both these players are going to get a charm. This would be an example of a good island. Okay, so both players got higher than a 1, so they both get a charm. Whoops. Okay. So that's one turn of Yargh. But there's one final thing we have to do. We have to move our ship to the next island. And when we finally get to the last island, the one with the T on it, that's when we fight the Terror of the Sea, which is the final boss fight that I was mentioning earlier. Anyway, that's our game. That's our game in one turn. We hope you enjoyed watching this, and if you have any questions about the game, please send them to yargh@gmail.com. Thank you.